that we saw Brandon Salazar do very well with. And it's just, if you want the big Darkness attacker, you've got to bring the poster child for the Darkness attacking archetype.
Yeah, Frank Pertsick and I loved Galarian Weezing Eternatus for a while. Isla Sutherland has been a person who's been grinding the deck online and in tournaments, just consistent day 2 results. And with Brandon getting second, it's kind of opened up the field a little bit for it, and at least counting a lot of the decks that were doing well. There was 3-4-0 Galarian Weezing Eternatus VMAX decks, so could make a huge splash, especially with a lot of Mew in the format right now.
Take away those abilities, lock down the Mew, lock down the Lost Box. It's been a lot of decks getting caught in the crossfire with this deck kind of coming back into its own as the format has kind of churned and evolved. Israel, had top 32 in San Diego, was on a different deck then, but this is what we see from these long-running players. They're always doing new things, playing whatever they feel is going to be the strongest for any given tournament. Not the overall meta, mind you. It's what they anticipated to be for that event, and that's what's so key to success for Pokemon. However, the rumor has it he's only gotten a couple hours of sleep. He was up late testing this, I guess. Some players, they get really nervous the night before. Do I really want to lock in this 60 for the tournament? Get as much testing as possible.
What do you mean? Israel flies in the morning of. That's what goes on.
Oh, he's one of
got
those.
off the plane at 6 a.m. and ready for the tournament. He got some dad responsibilities beforehand,
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Christian coming off a fresh top 32 from Oceania with Mew VMAX, going to be playing that deck again here today.
All the way from Finland, like Chip Ritchie said, he's ranked number 2 over there. A lot of points on the line, and you got to get those points wherever you can get them, Jeremy, so you can lock in that world spot.
Looking at the prizes there, good little mix of cards. 3 Dark Energy for Israel, along with a couple supporters. One important card to note is that Path to the Peak in the top of the prize cards for Christian. That is a very important card in this matchup to try to shut off a lot of those abilities from the Pokemon V of Israel's side of the board.
This is showing shades of the other match we saw on stream, where one side's going to really try to get set up and jump out ahead in the matchup over the other. And starting off, Israel's got the coughing in the active spot. So as we get into his turn, could just be the Ascension. Double battle, just threw it down.
Yeah, when you got it, you got it. And Christian has it like that. Double battle VIP pass is going to get 4 basic Pokemon. This is exactly what Mew wants to do.
I haven't seen this Mew V art in a long time as well. This is beautiful. Very just swagged out deck. We saw the Golden Path to the Peak, the Golden Escape Rope in the prizes. Christian is here to play. And I remember back when Mew VMAX first hit the scene, it was definitely a massive flex to have all of these high rarity cards to really show off for your opponent, especially since it was such a coveted list at the time.
Now, with the way this matchup kind of goes, you would think Israel's playing Dark Pokemon. Mew VMAX is weak to Dark. It's going to be pretty easy for Israel. It's actually not. You do have your ability lock with Galarian Weezing, and your Eternatus can deal a lot of damage with Dread End, but Mew VMAX just sets up so well. And if your opponent gets that setup, gets that Path to the Peak in play, you can be stuck with really just a bunch of Crobat V and nothing else going on. It's really going to have to rely on a lot of the disruption between both players. Israel is playing Temple of Sinnoh and Marnie and Judge to try to disrupt Mew a little bit. Meanwhile, Christian is going to be playing Judge, Path to the Peak and stuff as well, trying to do kind of the same thing.
So both players just playing for that disruption game, and we saw how volatile that can be. Rotom Phone also coming through. This is a trainer card that fell out of favor for Mew and has actually brought its way back in to these sorts of decks just for that consistency. We know how in these Mew VMAX decks, the chance of having a good hand versus a bad hand is all hinged on one card, and Rotom Phone goes a long way to fix those very clunky starts.
And another thing with the way the matchup kind of progresses too is even with the Dark weakness and all that, you are still kind of forced to play a Drapion V to help your Mew matchup out because it's just that good of a card. And it's a Dark Pokemon, so it works with your Eternatus VMAX.
Right, and I do need to point out that this Israel's deck is on Forest Seal Stone, no Sky Seal Stone in with the Drapion. It's just a matter of attacking consistently until you win the game. You aren't trying to do any very specific prize trading per se. And there's finally the pass return. We have Coughing in the active spot with that Ascension attack to search for that Galarian Wheezing and get the evolution, but Ultra Ball is going to come through first, discarding a Crobat V and a Choice Belt, finding a Pokemon of Israel's choosing to add to the hand, and also offering up a lot of information about what's in the prize cards, which is 3 Darkness Energy, Dark Patch, a couple supporters there too.
The whole goal with Israel's deck is early game, you use that Galarian Wheezing to shut off your opponent's abilities while you can set up on your bench, turn its VMAX, get a big bench full of dark Pokemon, and get those Dread End off. Now, one thing that's kind of a little bit worrisome is your opponent does play a few copies of Boss's Orders and Escape Rope, so that's cards you have to really worry about.
Oh, beautiful. So we got the Eternatus V coming into the bench. Drapion also getting benched. Boss's Orders comes in clutch to bring up that Mew V that has the energy and the Choice Belt attached to it. There's the attached return onto the Coughing into a retreat. Not going to go for Ascension. It's just going to take advantage of this beautiful board state to get the early KO.
When you have it, and might as well use it. Gets a double turbo energy off of the board along with that Choice Belt, so pretty good management of those resources there for Israel, being able to kind of take away a lot of the options Christian has this turn.
And that was a well-timed Crobat V to go all the way back up to 6 cards in hand with that Dark Asset ability. And now Christian is on the back foot for sure. Has Mew VMAX in the active, and we need to get rid of this Drapion V. It cannot swing again, or that will be way too much for this deck to come back from.
And it's going to start off with trying to find that double turbo energy, but not only that, you need to find a stadium to replace that Temple of Sinnoh in play. It makes your double turbo energy just count as a single colorless energy instead of the 2 that it normally is.
That's a tall order, but if you need specific cards in Mew, it's hard for them to search, but they can draw a lot of cards and try to find it. 1 heads on the Silene to pull 1 card from the discard pile, put that back in the deck.
Seems like a little awkward here. This is where you kind of want both tails, just because there's nothing in the discard that you really want to draw again. This quick ball you'll draw, but it's really just so you can discard something else. And wow, without the quick ball, you find the double turbo energy and the Lost City to bump that Temple of Sinnoh. That Drapion is now going to get sent to the Lost Zone if you want.
And the Lost City is so important to make sure that your opponent cannot bring this Drapion back, get an extra rep of that attack with the Wild Style ability, allowing it to swing in for free. Now it's just a matter of Christian figuring out the rest of the sequencing for this turn. You've got the cards you needed for this turn, but you've still got to plan for the future, right? This is still 2 prize cards down. You have to figure out where the rest of your prizes are going to come from after this Drapion goes to the Lost Zone.
And still, this turn is not over yet. With 2 more Fusion Strike systems to use from Christian, can still build the hand for the following turns, essentially.
And once you get an idea of what you're drawing into, you begin to sculpt the rest of your game plan around it. Cram-O-Matic also being added to the hand can offer up some nice utility. And there's a little bit of additional pressure here for Christian Tuomi to use these resources immediately because of the Marnies and the judges maybe taking these cards away. We'll have to see if Christian is going to maybe overextend a bit more just to get the value now, or just trust that the Genesects will just draw back into useful cards thereafter.
Looks like the debate on the Cram-O-Matic here.
Discarding a Pal Pad, so going for something immediate rather than long-term value, but gets the tails. These are all going to go to the discard pile just to thin down for that final Fusion Strike system. Drawing a couple more cards now. Another double turbo is nice to keep the attack chain going. Has to bump this stadium and then go for the attack. The power tablet is beautiful here. Lost City finally bumping Temple of Sinnoh. Double turbo is attached, and there's the knockout.
I do feel like maybe Christian was hunting for that path to the peak. That's why we didn't see him play the Lost City before any of the Fusion Strike systems. You're only allowed to play 1 stadium a turn. And while Lost City is great for getting rid of that Drapion forever, Path to the Peak is one of those cards that will stop Israel from kind of setting up.
And after the evolution into Eternatus VMAX and attached return on the Darkness Energy, Forest Seal Stone will now be activated onto the Crobat V to fetch out Dark Patch. This allows you to attach one Darkness Energy from your discard pile to a Pokemon of your choosing, and so now the Eternatus VMAX is ready to go. We do have Coughing in the active spot, but Escape Rope will switch this back to the bench and bring up a different target for this VMAX to take down. Once this attack is announced, it'll be 2 more prizes going over to Israel Sosa and only 2 more to take to close out this first game.
Honestly, with Christian bringing up that Mew V, that is a pretty easy knockout with Eternatus VMAX with very few Dark Pokemon in play. So depending on what Israel drew off that Professor's research, while he did draw a ton of Pokemon to play down, you don't need to this turn, and you're able to take that knockout pretty easily.
Yeah, the Eternal Zone does give you extra bench slots here, coming in very importantly. So we can just keep using the Crobat Vs, keep using the Galarian Zigzagoons to get down these pings, set up math for the future, and power up that Dread End attack. And yes, Mew V does go to the Lost Zone thanks to Lost City, although it doesn't really matter. But Mew VMAX is going to find its way back into the active spot, and Christian has to make a miracle happen with his back against the wall.
Some would say a Max Miracle. No, it is looking very tough for Christian this game. The turn 1 knockout with the Drapion, and then following it up with a Eternatus Dread End. It's a lot of pressure, and with using a Power Tablet, I'm not sure if Christian can actually take a one-hit knockout on the Eternatus VMAX. It does have 340 HP. It's a tough Pokemon to knock out.
You've got to reach for the stars. With the Power Tablets, one had already been used earlier just to thin down the hand. We see this so often with these Mew decks. You're using the Power Tablets, just throwing them out there just to get the hand down so you can draw more with the Genesect. And in these very specific moments in time or these different matchups, you need those resources to find damage numbers, especially like in the Lugia V-Star matchup, for example. But Christian has just Oricorio onto the bench to maximize this Fusion Strike system as much as possible, but it might look like he's struggling a bit to get the damage.
We're going to see possibly a Roxanne here, put Israel down to 2 cards, and force some way to try to get through this Eternatus VMAX, but if you're not able to take the knockout in one hit on it, it's just going to come right back and Dread End that Mew VMAX for the game.
Yeah, this is such a comfortable position to be in as the Eternatus VMAX player. You don't need to worry about your hand being disrupted. You've got your attacker in play. There's a second Eternatus V on the bench that could evolve if something ever were to happen to this big 3-prize Pokemon in the active. And Christian is the one who has to dig deep and respond. Here comes the Roxanne. After the shuffle, going to draw a new hand and put Israel down to 2 cards.
What I think we're going to see from Christian here is just a lot of card drawing, thinning out the hand, trying to draw into a bunch of stuff, but having discarded a Power Tablet turn 1 with Cram-O-Matic, and then using the Power Tablet the previous turn, it's going to be rough.
Yeah, there's 4 Power Tablets in the deck. We don't see Forest Seal Stone yet. Cram-O-Matic hits the tails. Still thins the hand down quite beautifully, however. There's another Cram-O-Matic in the hand, if I saw that correctly. So we can go down very low, Jeremy, and there's still 3 Fusion Strike systems to be used. Another Cram-O-Matic hits heads finally. Gonna dig here now. Maybe finds a Forest Seal Stone.
Well, no, you can search for anything. You're basically using a Forest Seal Stone right here. So
thin for the stone.
Path to the Peak is going to be the choice. It will shut off that Eternal Zone from the Eternatus VMAX, which means Israel's just going to have 5 bench Pokemon. You won't be able to have an extra space for Crobat V.
Okay.
And on top of that, the Path to the Peak is shutting off the Dark Asset ability. But the thing is, that's just not going to be enough. With Eternatus and a full bench of 5, you're doing 180 damage.
Wow.
And times that by 2, that's 360. Even with the Oricorio, you're not Mew's not surviving that knockout.
So here comes the first Fusion Strike system still, and this is all with finding those remaining Power Tablets as well. So a tall order still just to stay alive in this game, not even to get into a commanding position.
Really, it's just going to have to be Israel's most likely going to win next turn. You have everything on board. Was a potential for maybe like Boss's orders up the Eternatus V and get some damage on it. Maybe hope Israel doesn't have a way around it, but you had to Roxanne that big hand away. And it's just unfortunate the way the cards kind of lied here, and just facing down that weakness is really tough for Mew to do.
And Christian has to use the Path to the Peak as the final play for the turn. You know, can't just play it down to thin, turning off that final Fusion Strike system. There's only one more. And after the Escape Rope, just for the potential of thinning the hand, brings the Coughing up. So not taking down the Eternatus VMAX.
Christian just shortcutting there. The Escape Rope was bringing up the other Mew VMAX. They both are the exact same right now. So.
And they're both rainbow rare, very flashy. And after the Path to the Peak comes through, the Eternal Zone is turned off, so that does force the discard. But this is just a moment where Israel has just an attached retreat, bring the Eternatus VMAX back up into the active spot. Unless Christian can make something happen here, that path turns off that final Fusion Strike system.
Oh, and he copied Max Miracle for the knockout, but this just means Israel needs... I believe,
just one more Pokemon.
Yeah, one, because the Oricorio is going to stop it. There's the Quick Ball. Will find a Dark Pokemon. And from there, Israel has the Dread End for the knockout.
Yeah, the extra ping on the Mew VMAX kind of helping out a little bit there. And Christian did try his best. I think in the first game, knowing how volatile this matchup can get, wanted to try just a little bit harder to see if there was a path to victory rather than going for an instant concede. And this early in the tournament, maybe you do have that leeway, right? Not a lot of ties have come through just yet, so you can use your time just to maybe search for a line. And when things come down to the wire, say in game number 3, is where you have to try your very, very utmost to take down the W.
And both players are also playing decks where, while they do a lot of actions for their turns, they don't play a lot of turns for the match. It's usually 3 to 4 turns. The game's usually over. At least for this matchup in particular. There are some games where you just kind of sit behind a Galarian Weezing and judge and Marnie your opponent for 10 turns in a row, but that's not what Israel's trying to do here. Going with a little light on those supporters, going with Professor's Research in the deck instead.
Israel Sosa responded, I think, really beautifully to the hand that was being offered, the cards that were being offered, to not value the Coughing, to immediately just use the Drapion and pivot into the Eternatus VMAX. Recognized I have an aggressive slant here to my game plan that I can take advantage of, and forced Christian into a corner and closed out that game beautifully. We'll see if it'll be a repeat of game number 1 or if it will be a slower, grindier idea as we head into game number 2.
The biggest thing Christian is going to try to find this turn 1 now is ending the turn with that Path to the Peak. While it didn't really matter in game 1, Israel already had the Temple of Sinnoh in hand along with that Drapion V. It still will force Israel to have it again.
And Israel does have a starting basic Pokemon. Oh, did he not scoop his prizes back in?
Oh, okay, yeah, he still had prize cards from the previous game. Again, for first season playing on stream, you got a little bit different setup than a normal table here. You got your prize cards on the camera a little farther away from you.
That is true. That is true. If you're used to playing at the table and then play them at the prizes, end up, you know, definitely within an easy arm's reach. So not too big of a deal there. I'm glad that we caught that because I certainly missed it, but no worries. It also, you know, buys yourself a little bit of time to just recenter yourself and prepare for the next matchup at hand. You can even see, like, Israel putting the prize cards down a specific way, but they have to be turned for our audience members at home so they can see that beautiful, radiant Hisuian Sneasler.
What, you can't read upside down?
No, I never learned. Cram-O-Matic discards Gram-O-Matic. We're jumping right back in with the Forest Sealstone. Heads, going to find maybe a Battle VIP pass here.
Yeah, prize 2 of them, but who cares about the prizes when you can just search for it?
And then is going to take stock of what to grab off the Battle VIP pass and also look to see what other basic Pokemon are remaining and what other important tools are in the deck still. We know that Power Tablet, Path to the Peak, all very key cards in this matchup.
In the prizes, there was definitely a few Pokemon prized for Christian, but it's not going to be anything too bad. That Aerodactyl kind of hanging out there is pretty nice. You don't have to worry about that anymore.
And then when you draw the Aerodactyl V-Star, you just discard it to the Ultra Ball and thin your hand down. It's a great way to start this one up. Now, Christian does have a decision to be made here. Do I try to go deeper, use this for a Seal Stone to open up a line to keep drawing more cards, or do I just say, you know, Genesect V, Cramomatic Battle VIP Pass, is this enough, Jeremy?
This is where sequencing is so important for the Mew VMAX deck. Your Genesect Vs allow you to draw into a ton of cards every turn, but you have to work your hand into a way where it'll be beneficial for you. And we actually see here just the Path to the Peak right away. This is something you usually wait to see until after a bunch of your draws, but just Path to the Peak and a pass of the turn, seeing how important it was for Israel to use those abilities, that Drapion V with its Wild Style, and Israel responds with the Temple of Sinnoh right away.
Yeah, immediately gets rid of that. Christian had to go for a bit of a gambit there of saying, I don't want to overextend and just draw a bunch of cards just for the sake of doing it. I'm going to try to just complete my lockdown with the Path to the Peak and try to stop my opponent from getting set up. Unfortunate that Israel had the answer, but that's not always going to be the case. And after the quick ball, we see the Drapion is already being eyed down.
And that is going to be rough, too, because that means just an energy will allow Israel to retreat the Crobat V and get an attack off. The attack not only knocks out, needs an energy to attack with the Drapion. So, because there's only 3 Fusion Strike Pokemon in play, usually we're so used to just being free all the time.
It's always free all day. But that is true. Playing around the Drapion ever so slightly by only having 3 Fusion Strike Pokemon in play. So this means that you need the attach for turn, into the retreat, into the dark patch to reattach that darkness energy. But here comes the next dark asset, 6 cards. And yeah, it does look like a bit of a slower response here.
Yeah, no supporter here to keep things going. Was really hoping for something like that Professor's Research there. Has the dark energy, but won't be able to retreat the Crobat and attach to that Drapion V, so just passing the turn back.
So both players kind of opting into some slower ideas now. Just going for the early path, kind of playing it a little bit more measured. And now Israel, even having access to the Coughing, is going to attach to the Eternatus V and is going to try to give up on this Crobat if it comes down to it. Sure, my opponent takes 2 prizes from Crobat V, and then I just come roaring back off of the bench and taking a ton of prizes in response. The Drapion V not being able to attack as soon as it hits the bench is also really important, because this might allow Christian to boss that up and get rid of that threat before it's too late.
Israel almost drew 5 cards there. I was kind of worried, but caught himself there. Just 4 cards off of the judge for both players.
And once more, these early power tablets being spent to open up hand space for the Fusion Strike system. For a Seal Stone is also still on the table for Christian Tuomi. So this might be the turn where he's really going to dig deep, pull the trigger on a lot of these effects, and get a really stellar turn and cement an advantage.
Still has the Forest Seal Stone to be able to search for a way to get the Temple of Sinnoh out of play. That is going to be one of the biggest hurdles for this turn right now, along with getting the Genesect V out of the active and the energy for that Mew VMAX. But 2 power tablets being played.
I thought it was 3 for a second as well. 2 power tablets now down, and you can see that Christian isn't really worried, right, about I need to save these in order to answer Eternatus VMAX. I think the strategy here is probably trying to just snipe down the Drapion and take these Crobat Vs as well. As long as you can maintain your attackers and keep them healthy in play, keep your responses up. That is a sound game plan from just a pure prize mapping perspective, but we do have these extra layers, this back and forth of disruption.
Well, the thing that's rough, that is going to take this turn along with 2 more attacks, right? And you need a boss's orders or something for the last one, because Israel's going to attack with the Drapion V, then the Eternatus VMAX. And with the way it's planned out, Israel is going to be able to take 3 prizes off of Mew VMAX if it stays in the active spot. So it's a liability to get those 2 prizes.
And the third power tablet being offered here. The Fusion Strike systems already have been used. And the Forest Seal Stone, this is a very tough decision. This is the big fork in the road. Every best of 3 has it. He's got to go for the Forest Seal Stone.
Flipping over the V Astro marker, cool to see other language of V-Star markers.
And what is that card?
Switch.
Ah, Switch.
Yeah, you got to get the Genesect out of the active. It's
I
the only thing he had.
I didn't recognize the art for a second there. Beautiful Switch e-reader. Let's go.
Yeah, your only options here were Switch or Escape Rope. And if you're playing an Escape Rope, Israel's bringing up that coughing. And you do not want to take a knockout on that Pokemon.
So Forest Seal Stone used just to get rid of that threat. Brings up the Mew VMAX. Takes 2 prizes. And now Drapion V hits the active spot. There's the evolution, the attach for turn, and the research to discard down and draw a new hand of 7.
That was the perfect hand here. The only thing Israel's missing now is just benching Dark Pokemon. Eventually, you're going to get it. And as long as Christian just continues the game plan of attack with my Mew VMAX, which Mew is most likely going to do, Israel has the game plan kind of mapped out.
Zigzagoon pinging down that Mew V, already setting up for the next prizes to be taken. So much room on the bench now thanks to that Eternal Zone. Drapion V in the active. Another Ultra Ball comes through to find one more Dark-type Pokemon. And the Wild Style is indeed active with 5 Fusion Strike Pokemon in play on Christian's side. Picks up the Crobat V. This hand is thinned down even more. That'll be a beautiful dark asset all the way back up. 6 cards in hand. The way this deck flows and draws so many cards is beautiful to behold.
Just a reminder for you all at home, yet again, Israel's not cheating. Eternatus VMAX is able to allow you to play 8 Dark Pokemon on your bench thanks to Eternal Zone. And with that, the Drapion V takes that easy knockout on the Mew VMAX.
3 prizes, halfway there. Game number 2, Israel's looking to close this one out in style. Uses also the dynamic
style.
In the wild style, indeed. Dynamic Tail does damage a benched Pokemon, so Galarian Weezing's going to take that one for the team. There's another power tablet being used, trying to thin this hand down, but it looks like a repeat of what we saw in Game 1. Mew V is going to evolve into Mew VMAX, can take down the Drapion, and then Eternatus VMAX comes through to close this out. 2 3-prize knockouts was the VMAX format. Made games so fast. And this is a matchup that's just a massive blast from the past. And to be honest, when Mew V kind of came onto the scene, people thought that Eternatus would be the natural answer along with, Gengar VMAX, and they just never lined up properly. There was always other decks in the format that gave them a lot of trouble.
Well, I do got to say, Gengar VMAX did win one of the first regionals we had back here in Salt Lake. So
yeah, very true.
Hasn't shown up since, but we won't talk about that. We won't talk about that at all. At least Eternatus VMAX is showing up and showing out.
Yeah, it took a long time. I remember when Ultra Ball was reprinted, there was new hope for this lad, this big, dark Pokemon that everyone knows and loves at this point, and it's finally able to claim its revenge with a little bit of help with the Drapion V, the card that was printed specifically to remove Mew from the metagame. And it is exactly demonstrating what it is meant to do. Cram-O-Matic now being played, hits a Tails, however. There's still a lot of Fusion Strike systems to use from here.
All right, double Tails, but you got 4 cards out of your hand. You're going to be able to draw up to 4 now with Fusion Strike system.
1, 2, 3. There's a Silene. Quick Ball is looking to thin down. Just get rid of that immediately. Can find a Mew V to get another Fusion Strike Pokemon in play to boost the effectiveness of these Fusion Strike systems. There's a lot of resources to see, a lot of cards to draw, but even if you're drawing through a lot of the deck, Jeremy, I don't know if there's really anything that Christian can do to get out of this situation, especially with this Mew VMAX in the active.
Still needs a double Turbo Energy just to take the knockout here, and with that, Israel already has game on board. So you're really just playing it to play it out. Maybe Israel promotes the wrong Pokemon and can't retreat out of it or something. You got to play to what your opponent can give you, what your hand can give you, and of course what your deck gives you off the top.
Yeah, this Mew is a deck that's designed to just be kind of even into most things, and like every other deck in the format, if your opponent's playing something that's got your number, yeah, there's not much that you can do in that situation. Here comes the Rotom Phone as well, just digging so deep, looking for any possible answer to get out of this situation. And
yeah, sometime we see a one of Clap Stadium in these Mew VMAX lists to get the Aerodactyl out of the way, so you can use Fusion Strike System more for later on. That would be one of the best cards right now in this match. You can put Israel down to 4 bench. That means your Mew would be kind of safe if the Oricorio is out, but again, that's not even there. You are just going through the motions, take your knockout, go down to 2 prizes. Israel's going to promote that Eternatus VMAX, and
yeah, Israel with the bold call out for this format, bringing the Eternatus. It did very well, and then it seemed to kind of fall off a bit, but he believes in the deck, bringing it all the way here to Charlotte, North Carolina, and is already claiming his first victim on the stream here, running into the Mew VMAX matchup that you were really hoping to see.
Last Fusion Strike System here will net a few more cards for Christian. Does have the knockout with the Technoblast from the Cross Fusion Strike.
So Drapion V will go down. Christian Tuomi going down to 2 prize cards remaining, but has a 3 prize Pokemon left in the active. So is there a way to boost this attack in Psychic Leap or something, put the VVMAX back in the deck so 3 prizes can't be taken?
No.
This is one of those games, Jeremy, where I start making stuff up. I'm just digging so deep as well, figuring out a way out of the situation.
All right, well, there is the knockout. Israel just needs 1. Or no, you don't even need the bench Pokemon here. There's no Oricorio. Dread End will be able to take the knockout thanks to weakness. And
oh, wait, just doing some quick math, and there's the handshake, just making absolutely sure that those numbers were where they needed to be, and Israel Sosa taking it down on the stream in round number 5.
Christian was definitely dreading the end of that game for sure. Israel, anytime you get to play Dark Patch, always seems to pull out the win somehow, and maybe we'll see him later on in this regionals, starting off a good 5-0 here.
Beautiful to see, and we know from experience that so many decks in the format, if you can accelerate energy from the discard pile onto your Pokemon, that way you keep that consistent pressure against your opponent, is so key to getting that early advantage and then rolling that into a victory. That means you have the next thing already prepped and ready to go, and by being able to accelerate those energies, you're also able to outplay a lot of disruption cards, right? You don't need to worry about things being in your hand because everything is already in play with their energy attached and ready to attack as soon as your turn begins.
And it goes to show how Israel approached the matchup. Your deck has 2 very different game plans for depending on what you're facing against. Galarian Weezing is very good at disrupting the opponent, turning off all their abilities as long as it's in the active spot. But when your opponent can just evolve into a Mew VMAX, attach a double turbo, take the knockout, that's not what you want to be doing. Israel going the hyper-aggressive route, that Drapion as early as turn 1 in that first game, getting 2 energy on a turn as VMAX, you know your opponent's going to take a lot to knock this out in 1 hit, and you kind of just set up checkmate from there.
That is a beautiful way to put it, checkmate. When you're playing Mew VMAX against a deck with so many attackers that are just all waiting in line to get their turn in the active spot to take some prizes, there just isn't much you can do. The modern styles of Mew want to disrupt and stop that from happening in the first place, but once you're established, they can't break that board state.
Yeah, you're playing against a deck that's playing 3 supporters that are going to hurt you. They're playing 4 Crobat V that is just going to draw an insane amount of cards from your deck each and every turn. And then you're playing disruption cards along with that. What can you not like about it? It's Eternatus VMAX. Oh, come on.
Having the extra bench slots was so useful to just go with the Galarian Zigzagoon. And usually when you play the Crobat V, it used to be a staple card in almost every deck in earlier formats. And over time, it became more and more of a liability. Players were just going Boss's Orders, getting those knockouts for an easy 2 prizes to close out the game. And this is a deck now that can loop these dark assets turn after turn and has the extra bench space to make make use of these Pokemon Vs that aren't going to be attacking for you and takes away that potential weakness of just having the raw resource advantage.
Yeah, really just digging through the deck, trying to find what you need when you need it, and Israel had just that for those 2 matches, or those 2 games there in that match. And going on to 5-0, Christian's still starting off very strong, 4-1. You need 19 match points to make it into day 2, so just a couple more wins, maybe a tie will guarantee that for sure.
Yeah, Mew has, again, I've said it over and over again, really just solid matchups across the board. And we saw in the graphs earlier, Jeremy, that